Have you ever wondered what you can do to extend the life of that battery? Either on your electric vehicle, your hybrid vehicle, your plug-in vehicle, or really any battery? Well, that's what I'm here to answer today. We're going to be talking about all the tips and tricks to making your battery last longer. Now, it's not just about lasting longer in regards to, how many years will the battery hold its charge and, how long it'll really just last. I'm also talking about how long it'll last in regards to range or autonomy. So I'm Johnny from Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, and I'm here to help. That's my mission. I really want to help the community out, know as much as possible, and I am looking for people in the comments section to also add info. No one can ever know everything, and no one can fully flesh out any subject. So I hope the community always works to help each other out. The goal is to learn. Now, about learning, this is going to be very relevant if you have any plug-in hybrid vehicle, or if you're waiting on your Maverick, your hybrid Maverick, and you're wondering, what should I do with the hybrid Maverick? How should I treat it? What does it cover, for me, and what do I need to do so that the battery stays healthy? And of course, I'll be talking about electric vehicles. So whether you have a Tesla, or whether you have an order on a Ford F-150 Lightning or a Mach-E, this is going to be really, really helpful. So let's get right into the tips and tricks to making that battery last longer in regards to durability and range. So let's start right up by putting the pedal to the metal and jumping right into this season's main issue, and that's cold weather. Now, speaking of cold weather, first of all, I want to wish everyone happy holidays, Merry Christmas. If it's cold in your area and you need a little warm-up juice, great, that's fine. Let me know in the comment section if you're having a little bit of warm-up juice, either a hot coffee, hot chocolate, or, an adult drink. Let me know. Love to hear what you're having this evening. Now let's talk about those cold weather tricks that you need to do to make your battery last, because really cold weather can be disastrous. It can actually ruin your battery if ever it freezes. Now, all these vehicles are going to have certain protections to make sure that they don't freeze, and the more you push the autonomy or the range on a battery, the closer you bring it to its true zero. Well, any battery will freeze when there's no longer a charge in that liquid that's in the battery. So that battery liquid will freeze as soon as there's no charge. Many of you have probably already seen it on a 12-volt battery. You leave your car out for 2 months and slowly it's going to drain. And then what's going to happen? That battery will freeze. When it freezes, it'll crack, it'll leak. And the real danger with lithium batteries, so that's, your regular hybrid Maverick, your plug-in Escape, for example, or all electric vehicle, Tesla, Mach-E, all these, if they were ever to get to a true 0% charge, they will freeze and those batteries will be ruined. And what's not funny? It's about 50,000 Canadian to replace, and this is an approximation, but it's around 50,000 Canadian to fully replace all the batteries on a premium Mustang Mach-E. Now, it's going to be a lot less if you do ruin your Maverick battery, but likely your hybrid Maverick battery won't be ruined. If you did leave it out for, if you drove it in on a very low charge, getting right into your driveway in very cold weather, and then you went down to Florida for 2 months, yeah, it could be an issue. So the first tip I've got is park in a garage whenever possible. A heated garage, even if it's only heated at barely above freezing, that is going to protect your battery. And that goes for your 12-volt battery. That goes for, an Escape plug-in's 14.4 kilowatt an hour battery, any fully electric vehicle, or your Maverick. So you're getting a Maverick hybrid, or you have a hybrid of another brand, great. I hope you love it. Let us know. But you got to park that thing in the garage whenever possible. Second thing you can do in regards to cold weather, leave the vehicle plugged in. So obviously the hybrid Maverick, you have regular traditional hybrids. You don't plug those in. But you can certainly make sure that if you are going to park it for a while, try to find a route before you get home where you kind of let off the gas and that battery gets to recharge. So try to get it to recharge before you park it, because you don't want that battery to be low and then do a slow drain. If you're going to drive off, fly off south for 2-3 months, you don't want to leave your vehicle with a low charge. So park it in the garage. Don't leave the battery near empty. For 12 volt batteries, you'll want a trickle charger. That's a small charger, a 2 amp charger, and that will slowly hold the charge on your battery so it doesn't freeze. So that's only, let's say, $100 to $200 error if your 12 volt battery freezes. It's going to be completely ruined. There's nothing you can do, but you definitely don't want one of these hybrid or electric vehicle batteries freezing. So moving right along to the next thing you can do other than leaving it plugged in. So if you have a plug-in hybrid or an electric vehicle, remember, leave it plugged in when it's very, very cold. Now you don't want to always be topping off your battery, and we'll get to that after, and we'll explain what topping off is, because that can be very bad if you're doing that on a very like a daily basis. But when it's cold, very cold out, below freezing, now's the time to leave that vehicle plugged in as often as possible. So what can you do to increase range? Talking about durability, now let's talk a little bit about range. Range, you can get definite extra range by preconditioning the vehicle. That means, one, parking the heated garage is going to help, because when you do go out into that cold weather, you won't have to crank up the heat. So first thing, don't crank up the heat. Second thing, try to, precondition the vehicle. That means it's plugged in, and you'll set, if you have a Ford, you've got Ford Pass, and you can program sort of like an alarm when your vehicle is going to start heating for you. While it's plugged in, that way your battery will either barely go down or not drain at all. So preheat the vehicle, essentially, is all I'm saying here. Now, what else can you do? Once you do get in the vehicle and your cabin is warm, if you heated it while it was plugged in, hey, why not get it as hot as possible inside? But then when you do get inside, if possible, turn down the heat. Put it kind of like on a minimum setting, just enough to keep that front glass from freezing. And now what you're gonna do is you're gonna try to live off the heated seats, because the heated seats use far less heating than the actual, heating from the vents, traditional heating, as we could say. So try to stay warm with those heated seats. Turn the heating as low as possible, even off if possible, and that's going to help you get more range out of that vehicle, or better if you're a hybrid, better fuel economy. Now, the last point I'm going to be talking about, cold weather driving isn't always a fun one, unless you've got a snowmobile or whatnot, a four-wheeler to go play out in the snow, you're a skier, but snow on your vehicle is not fun. That's going to have you have a bad day, because one, the vehicle is going to weigh more, and it's not going to be as aerodynamic. So try to keep that vehicle clean so you can get either more battery range or better fuel economy out of your hybrid or electric vehicle. Now we're going to move on to warm weather tips. Maybe not the season for it unless you're down south. If you're watching from down south, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. You got to protect your vehicle in high temperatures. This can also be not quite as disastrous as the cold weather. That can just completely ruin your battery. But high temperatures can definitely cause problems for the long-term durability. That means how long your battery lasts. And part of that, lasts is what kind of autonomy are you going to get from it? Let's say right now you're getting 300 miles. Well, slowly that battery can depreciate, and it'll depreciate by more if you mistreat it. So here are some tricks to deal with hot weather. First of all, again, park either in the shade or in a garage. So I was talking about garages. I seem to love them, but park in your garage. If you don't have a garage, try to park in the shade. Remember, cities, it'd be great if you have a few trees here and there. Cities built with trees in them look better. The shade's better for everyone. Temperatures are cooler. It's better for the humans. It's better for the vehicles. Now, what else can you do? You can precondition your vehicle. So what does preconditioning your vehicle mean? Well, let's say you have Ford Pass because you have a Ford. That's an application you can download. And with these vehicles, and using also the sync system, you can use the sync system to set in alarms in your vehicle to pre-cool the vehicle. That means it's going to start, let's say every morning or every day you leave work at 5. It's a whole lot hotter at 5 in the afternoon than it is in the morning. So I'll use that as an example. In the afternoon for 5 o'clock, have your vehicle start cooling itself off while plugged in at, let's say, 4:30 or whatever time you think it'll take for your vehicle to get the temperature you want it to be. Have it cool off while plugged in so you get the most range possible. And of course, you got to kind of be either avoid using air conditioning altogether to get more range out of the battery, or run with the windows down on the vehicle, or of course just You don't have to be freezing cold inside. Pick a reasonable temperature. That will actually get you more range, because the heating system and the cooling system in regards to, cabin cooling and cabin heating take up a good amount of battery. Now, for all us people who are still driving gasoline engines, we're going to understand this next point. Keep your driving speeds moderate. So let's say there's a huge difference on the highway in fuel economy when you have a gas vehicle, a gas engine. If you're driving, 65 miles per hour or 75 miles per hour, the faster you go, the more wind resistance you have, the more gas you have to burn to fight that wind resistance. Well, same thing for an electric vehicle. You're going to use more battery. So if you want to get range, drive at a moderate speed, keep those tires inflated, and actually have them as hard as possible. If your vehicle allows to, let's say, have 40 pounds of pressure, a tire that's at 40 pounds of pressure will actually get you better fuel economy on a gasoline engine or more range on an electric vehicle than if you keep your tires, you kind of forget about them and you don't check them and they're at 22 PSI. Now, here's one for the disaster, the don't be fooled category. A lot of people figure, hey, I've got an electric vehicle. I want to get as much range as possible. I'm going to plug it in all the time. That's not good for a battery. Ideally, you'll mostly keep your battery between 80% and 15%. It's not healthy for a battery to often be below 15%. You want to avoid draining it. And you also want to avoid, when possible, completely fully charging it. And this is actually why Ford on the Mustang Mach-E, and they'll also be doing the same thing on the F-150 Lightning. The Mach-E, they've told us it's an 88 kilowatt an hour battery on the big battery, and it's called the usable battery. That's because there's about another 10 or 11 kilowatt per hour of battery that's inaccessible, because one, the company wants to make sure that they always keep on the drained side of the battery, the low end of the battery. When you're drained, they want to keep a little buffer to make sure the battery doesn't freeze. That means less range overall, but at that point, getting an extra 15, 20 miles, that's just about bragging. It's good to leave a protective range. So part of those leftover, untalked about, unusable 10 kilowatts, for example, on a Mach-E is about protecting the battery when it is low, but also protecting the battery when it's high. Because if you were to truly, very often, bring the battery to a true 100% charge, that would be disastrous. Now, car companies, depending on the manufacturer, will buffer, you could say, that full charge by a certain amount. And at Ford, it's relatively high, and that's why you're getting a little less autonomy as a trade-off for dependability. But you yourself can help out a lot by not constantly charging that battery 100% on what's, in your screen. So when possible, try to live with the 15 to 80%, because that's going to help a lot. And this brings us to trips. When you're doing trips, the more often you stop and the more often you actually keep it between 15% battery autonomy and 80% battery autonomy, the longer your battery is going to live. Now, that's a great trick to help get more years out of your battery. We don't want these things lasting as long as the batteries on our cell phones do. Am I right? Often we change batteries after 2-3 years because we've noticed that the battery doesn't hold its charge nearly as well as when it was new. Well, guess what? I think all of us, most of us, let our batteries on our cell phones get to near 0%, and then we charge it to 100%. And a lot of us also have the habit of we walk by the charger. Oh, that's right, I'm not using my phone right now. I'll plug it in. I'm going to go make a YouTube video. Oh, I'll plug in my phone, and you're at 95%. Well, topping off from 95 to 100% isn't good for the durability of the battery. But stay tuned. We've got more tricks coming right up on what you need to do for range and durability on the battery. So to give you a precise number on what you can do, a precise percentage of what you can do to make your battery last longer, charge it every day to 90%. Now, that occasional, maybe once a month or twice a year, long road trip you're going to take, it's okay from time to time to really bring it up to 100%. You just don't want to be doing that on a daily basis. But when you are on those long trips, something you can definitely do is You definitely, it's not great to regularly use that fast charger. You know, the 150 amp, the big charger, and as chargers get bigger and bigger, you're gonna want to not go on those on a regular basis. It might seem like a good idea, you know, if you're in an apartment and maybe you only have access to 110 volts, well then, yeah, that's rough, because that's about 5 kilometers an hour, or about 3 to 4 miles per hour, that it'll charge up at 5 kilometers per hour or 3 miles per hour on 110 volt. That's a heck of a long time when you have a 300 mile battery autonomy. It'll take you hours, tons of hours to charge that up. Very long. Well, that doesn't make quite so much sense. So of course, at that point, you're going to be tempted to go towards a very fast charger, but sticking to a 32 amp charger is going to be better for the life and longevity of your battery. So to put this into simple terms, slow charging, also known as 120 volt, which can be very slow, or 240 volt, which is often a 32 amp or slightly more charger, is going to help preserve your battery health. It's going to make it last longer, and avoiding, of course, going on the fast charger when you're near 0% and charging all the way to 100%, well then you're just putting a whole bunch of really bad habits in regards to durability together at once. So avoid that DC fast charging to preserve your battery health. Now, speaking of DC fast charging, some of you will only use that when you're on long trips, and that's fine, but do keep in mind that from 0 to 15%, and also in the range from 80% autonomy to 100% autonomy, in those ranges, very low on the battery, very high on the battery, even if you're plugged into a fast charger, which does cost a lot, it's not going to charge fast, because a smart electric vehicle isn't going to take all the amperage that it can. It's going to, say, hold on, I'm low or I'm high right now. I'm too high to take all that, way too high. Sorry. 95, at 81%, it's gonna say, no, sorry buddy, not taking that fast charge, and it's actually only gonna accept a slow charge. So you're gonna pay a fortune for that last 20%, or from that 0 to 15%. So if you're going on a long trip, do keep in mind to refill or recharge when you're between 15 and keep it between 15 to 80%. And during those long trips, and especially on your daily drive, if you're on a long trip and you want to show off to your friends, your fishing buddies, your hunting buddies, your shopping gals, not to make this just a guy channel, your shopping gals, or whatever you happen to do, you female hunter, whatever. Just avoid the excessive driving on a regular basis. Of course, you want to show your friends and family, like, check out what my electric vehicle can do, because you're certainly not going to be saying, hey, listen to how great my electric vehicle motor sounds. No, it doesn't sound like anything. So what you are probably going to do is maybe put the pedal to the metal and show them how incredibly impressive that acceleration is. But you don't want to be doing that on a daily basis, because excessive driving is going to hurt your battery. So those are all the tips and tricks, the must-know ones for this week that I've got. Now, I've really got to say, I'm going to have to do a live on this. I am absolutely flattered that we passed the 5,000 subscriber mark. I'm loving the fact that the community is really helping each other out, we're telling each other when we get our Mavericks, when we get our Broncos. I found that to be incredible. And I also find it's actually awesome that we, as a channel, as a group here, the community, you've all helped make the channel have over now 1 million views. So thank you so much. And speaking about that, I wish all your families and all your friends and everyone who's watching a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And if you hit that like button, it'll help get this information out. And if you hit that subscribe button, well, of course, it's Christmas time, and I am kind of cheesy, so I did get Winston a Christmas present, so it helps pay for those presents for Winston, for that poodle. I wish you all more cars and more power, and we'll see you in the next video.